Hello, listeners, and welcome back to yet again another episode of the Beautiful Game podcast. As ever, I'm your host, Budge. I'm joined by my right-hand man, my partner in crime, Dot. What's going on, bro?
I'm good, Budge, man. Before we start, I just want to shout out the Gold Diggers for sending over this shirt. It's
big up.
Non-profit women's, football organisation that, wants to get more women into football. So thank you, Charlotte, for sending this over.
100%, man. Shout out to you, man. And obviously, our third man, part of the front three, Dej couldn't be here today, so shout out to him. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here in the studio, so we're going to hold it down regardless.
Definitely.
We got a very, very special guest that we're joined by today, and I think we're going to have a really, really good chat with him. He's a Premier League player, a swashbuckling, all-action, dynamic midfield player who also has played in a number of different positions as well. He's played at right back, he's played at centre back as well. And maybe this is coming from a biased perspective because I'm an Arsenal fan, right? But thinking about this guy in particular, it reminded me of, that Royal Navy advert where it's like, where someone would be like, oh, sure, I was born here, but I was made in the Royal Navy. Yeah. This gentleman obviously currently is playing for Newcastle. However, he is a product of the famed Hayden Academy. But anyway, we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about his playing career and all the rest of it. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome ISAAC Hayden to the platform. Welcome, ISAAC.
Welcome, ISAAC.
Hi, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you finding the time, man. Yeah, thank you for making the time out to come and chat to us, man. We really appreciate it, bro.
No problems at all. No, it's been a long time coming, so it's good to come on.
No, we appreciate it. I think just to kick things off, I want to talk about, player welfare. We're seeing, a lot of COVID cases currently in the Premier League. And I think Jordan Henderson came out saying, listen, there's no care, there's no independent body that looks after the players. What's your feelings towards player welfare in the Premier League right now?
I think it's a tricky subject because I think it's different for a lot of different categories of players, because if you think about, for example, obviously Jordan, with what he said, he's thinking a lot about the top echelons of the players, So, for example, the top six is where they've got Champions League, FA Cup, League Cup, Premier League, international games. If you're an international player, I can imagine it's tricky, because you've got every international break, you're going away, for 10 days of your country. You don't get a break in the international breaks. No days off. Then obviously you come back straight to a Premier League game. So it's a nightmare really for those lads because for their families as well, you don't get any time off. And then obviously you got Euros, World Cup. They're trying to bring in that World Cup every 2 years, which I think is ridiculous. So there's no time off for the players, if you're at that level, Whereas obviously at the Premier League there's different types of levels. Obviously, still being a Premier League player, but I don't play international football. So, it's okay for me because international breaks, of course, you're still working, but, you usually get 2-3 days off during that time to spend with your families or do whatever you want to do. So for me, especially at the start of the season, it breaks up quite nicely. Obviously, Christmas is a bit mad with all the games and stuff like that, but that's just traditionally England. Obviously, every other foreign country has their own, agendas or what they want to do with their breaks and stuff like that. But England, as a whole, has always been based around Boxing Day games, festive period being entertainment. So from that side of it, I understand the broadcasters and the Premier League's obviously thinking behind it. But I can understand for international players or players that are playing Champions League, playing 3 or 4 or 5 different competitions, it's probably too much. But then for the lads that are not playing international football or not in Champions League or Europa League, like, for example, me, players that are at other lower Premier League clubs at the moment, I don't see it being big of an issue. But I can imagine from the top lads, it is a big issue. But saying that, in the Championship lads, they have 46 games a year, plus FA Cup, plus caps, so they have it as well. But again, the level of games is not obviously the same, but it's a similar level of physical output that you're going to be doing. So it depends. For me, I can understand where Jordan's coming from, but I can also understand where the broadcasters and the Premier League are coming from.
100%. And something else I wanted to ask you about, Isaac, is obviously at this point of the year, it's a festive period. Typically people will be sort of winding down, spending time with family, so on and so forth. And already being a footballer, this is naturally a difficult time for you guys because, you're playing on Boxing Day. You don't really get a chance to really sort of let down your hair and really relax over the Christmas break. How much more difficult is it now with COVID? And like what's like typically like a Christmas like in the Hayden household, for example? How do you spend your Christmas?
To be fair, yeah, it is a bit. Obviously, COVID brings a new part into it. Obviously, because for example, my family obviously got tested before they came up to spend Christmas here. Obviously, I get tested every day anyway. So, you try to create some sort of bubble and be a bit sensible with it, but obviously not stopping family coming up. So I think that's pointless. But it's tricky because ever since I was 17, I've been in every Christmas. Because even when you're at Arsenal, like, even though you're not in the first team, like playing week in, week out, at 17, I was training with the first team regularly. So when it's Christmas, you don't get the Christmas off. You're still training because they need the numbers for training and stuff. So it's the same thing. So you always have to be ready and prepared. So since I was 17, I've always known it to be like this. So it's simple. For example, this year we were lucky because obviously the game's today. Well, I'm suspended obviously for today's game, but the game would have been today. So we actually had Christmas Day off. We had a personal program that was given to us to do on the day, just to keep the legs ticking over. And obviously then trained yesterday. But for example, the years before that, the last 2 years, I think last year was Man City away, and then the year before that was Man United away. So we had to then travel on Christmas Day in the evening, stay in the hotel, and then obviously play the game the next day and then come back. So that's usually what it normally would be. But as I said, you just get used to it over the years. When you've been doing it for so long, it just becomes the norm, and you do get usually after the January the 1st or 2nd we play. There's usually like a week's break before we play FA Cup, and usually after that game we get like a couple of days off just to relax, rest the bodies, ready to go again.
So what's on the menu then for you on a typical Christmas? Because obviously I know you're a fan of pigs in blankets. I know you you probably can't have that over Christmas, or you can't pig out. So what would your menu be? What are you allowed to have with keeping in mind that you probably would have a game on the Boxing Day or the day after, whatever. To
be fair, it's pretty. For me personally, I don't go too far away from a traditional Christmas dinner. I just reduce the portion.
Right.
So,
right.
If it's turkey, chicken, whatever it is, that's fine because that's sweet. Roast potatoes. To be fair, it's different. If you play Boxing Day, Christmas Day is actually a carb loading day. So you actually carb load on Christmas Day. Right. So instead of it. So you don't have pigs in black. I see. That's more fatty. But, you have your chicken, your turkey, vegetables, roast potatoes, rice, whatever it is. But it's a similar meal to normal, but you can obviously add a few bits in. But there's no cake, obviously, and all the chocolate and stuff like that. But to be fair, I've kind of moved away from that anyway. I used to have a really sweet tooth, but now I don't know. It's just over time. If your diet is the right way, if you don't eat it, you don't miss it. So it's pretty standard, to be honest. But because it's the day before a game, you carb load, so you do eat a lot of carbs. So for me, it's pretty similar to normal, just that the portion sizes are reduced.
Fair play.
I think moving on to stuff on the pitch, obviously it's been a very, I would say, turbulent season at Newcastle so far this season. Obviously the club is now under new ownership, and it seems like there's going to be bright times coming in the future. But, what have you seen from Eddie Howe? What difference has he made?
He's certainly made a difference in pretty much everything, really. I felt a little bit sorry for Steve Bruce at the end because obviously I worked with Steve before at Hull for a season, and he was very good to me. And obviously when he came into the club, he was very good to me again. So I felt a little bit sorry for him because Obviously, last year towards the end of the season, the team did really well, won a lot of games, obviously finished 12th. Then obviously this season we started again. I don't think we quite got pre-season right. You know, we had a lot of players, a lot of key players that were either injured during pre-season or were carrying knocks, so then therefore weren't as fit. Then we come to the first, 2 or 3 games of the season and we were nowhere near fit enough. And that's not a dig at the manager or the coaching staff. It's just that, unfortunately, we just had a few injuries, a few knocks, and we just couldn't be as fit as we wanted to be. And to be fair, obviously there's a lot made of we didn't win, for the first goodness knows how many games. But it was unlucky. Like, it was some of the games that you just sat there and thought, it's just not going for us, I mean, we played Southampton at home. I mean, Allan scored. We're 2-1 up, 94th minute, VAR penalty. Obviously, Ward-Prowse puts it in like he always does. That was unlucky. It should have been a win. We played Watford away, and when I mean we battered them. It was like we battered. Like, there was no way that they could have come off the pitch afterwards and said that they deserved anything from the game. And I mean, to be fair to them, they've strung a few wins together. They've done all right this season, to be fair to Watford, and I think that they're a good club with good players. But that particular game, I don't know how we drew the game. So then that's 2 results already that we should have won, which is 4 more points. And if that's the case, we're pretty much not in the relegation zone. We're there or thereabouts. And obviously those 2 games in particular probably cost the manager his job. Obviously a takeover is going to happen. It's probably inevitable anyway. But I just felt a little bit sorry for him in the end, because I thought it wasn't like we were terrible in every game. Like, we were there or thereabouts in a lot of the games, and it was just small margins that were going against us and going against him as the manager. And eventually, obviously, the pressure and obviously the ownership changed hands. They were going to make a change. Eddie's come in and has said, top gaffer, knows his stuff. Man management is very, very good, but the intensity and his identity of plays is very, very strong. And one that obviously he's trying to implement and trying to get better with the lads that are there. But you can see that that's the most important thing to him, is it's the identity of his play. And I think that most players and fans understand that he's got an identity and what it is. And he wants you to implement it every day in training, every day in every time in matches. And as I said, he's very, very strong on that, and very, very strong on his man management side as well.
I think just going back to the tenure with Steve Bruce, like, how was it as players, knowing that, you're playing at St. James's Park in front of a full house, the stadium's rocking, but the minute you go a goal down, the atmosphere becomes almost toxic. Like, how was it for the players?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, because as I said, he's your manager, so you have to respect him. I mean, to be fair, we had a few ding-dongs during our time between him and myself. As player management, you get these sorts of things. But to be fair to him, he was always like, he's a typical man's man. Like, you could have an argument or whatever it is, but you shake hands at the end of it, and then that's it. It's done. There was no drag on with him. It was like you could say what you wanted to say, and then that was it. Bang. So he was a proper old school manager in terms of proper man's man. So I've respected him for that, and it's tricky because it obviously with the team wasn't doing very well in some of the games, and like you said, you go a goal down, or we're not winning at half time, and sometimes it's like the crowd does turn. I mean, I think, when was it? Which game was it? I think it was the Leeds game, which was probably one of the worst since I've been at the club, was one of the worst atmospheres I've played in. Like, we went 1-0 down. I think Rafinha scored a cross. Like, it was a cross, but it was like,
went straight in.
There was no one there, but it just bounced and went straight in. And when that goal went in, the atmosphere was hot, and I was thinking, wow. Like, it was like, literally, it was just, when it's like, because obviously Leeds and Newcastle is quite there's a little bit of a rivalry there, just because it's the closest Premier League club probably to Newcastle. And it's always had a little bit of history to it, So when they go 1-0 up, obviously all their fans, they bring to be fair, their fans are incredible as well. Their away support is impressive. and when they're singing, you know, marching all together and all that, and they're 1-0 up, and you can just see the fans turn, and you can see the manager on the sideline. He's like, like thinking what to do next, and then they're booing, and you're thinking, this is tricky. But to be fair to Steve, is he changed the formation after like 30 minutes, and then he matched them up, and we actually gave it a really good go, and we drew 1-1, but we could have actually nicked the game. So I think that it showed the character of the group, that we regrouped at half time, we came together, didn't fold, and then actually came out second half and probably could have nicked it. But some of the atmospheres were tricky to play in, especially this season, just because of the hostility between obviously the fans and the manager. So it's always tricky, but you have to try and do your job and play the game plan that you're obviously trying to do in the game from the manager as best you can, and sort of block the noise out. But sometimes it's tricky, like the Leeds game, you did sit there and think, you thought, this is a bit, it's a bit tasty.
I can imagine. You know what? Come to think of it as well, I think Steve came under a lot of scrutiny and criticism, I think. And part of it was, I feel, due to the fact that he was a slightly older gentleman, right? And people feeling like his methods and his tactics were a bit outdated and whatnot. Yeah. And obviously you've got in a younger, fresher faced manager in Eddie Howe now. Yeah. Are you able to identify any key differences between both of their styles of management in terms of their tactics, in terms of, man management, all of that kind of stuff?
I think the difference is that I think with Steve, I think sometimes he got caught up a little bit on the opposition and a little bit caught up on how good they were and what we had to do to stop them, rather than what we were good at and what we could impose on them. I think Eddie's come in, and to his credit, he's got everyone believing in themselves a little bit more, ability-wise, and as a team. And, we don't really show the teams that much respect anymore, Obviously, we played Liverpool the other day and they won 3-1, but, we didn't sit back. We were kind of pressing them, making, trying to impose our own performance on the game. Even Man City, a couple of times we nicked the ball and could have scored or could have created something. So we're pressing teams a lot more. We're not really showing them that respect, especially high up the table. And I think that's his mentality, is that, we've got some good players, that, especially attacking players, that can hurt teams, and to be, imposing our style on the game a little bit more. But I think it just depends. As I said, it's different identities, different styles. Everyone's got their own way. And let's be honest, whether people like it or not, fans or whoever it is, we finished 13th and 12th with him as manager in 2 seasons. So, and I mean, comfortably, 13th the first year. And then obviously 12th, it looked a bit better than it was, because obviously the table was quite tight. But, we've been in the Premier League now for this is our 5th season now. So at the end of the day, the managers that have been in the past haven't done, badly. Obviously the expectation sometimes is quite high, but that's part of playing for a big club. And people obviously want us to do better. But if you think about it, we finished 10th in the first season back in the Premier League, 13th, and 12th. And then obviously this year's our 5th. So really, it's been quite comfortable in the end. Obviously, at certain points we've been in tricky situations, but towards the end it's been quite, in the end, quite comfortable. So people will look at it in whatever way they want to look at it. But when it comes down to the results, and at the end of the day where we finished okay.
I think going back to the game against Liverpool, I remember you guys actually took the lead. I think John Joe Shelby with a top quality finish. And then obviously Liverpool were applying pressure, and then there was a dubious goal for 1-1 in my opinion. And I'm a Liverpool supporter, and I was like, that should have been ruled out, because Mike Dean saw 2 players on the floor holding their heads, and you were one of them.
Yeah.
So what's your take on the standard of refereeing in the Premier League at the moment?
It's a tricky one, because I don't like to make excuses. I'm not someone that makes excuses in terms of my own performance or the team's performance, because obviously we haven't been good enough this season. But I do think that lately it's just tricky, because there's no consistency in the Premier League. It doesn't seem anymore. And that's the thing that, for me personally, that's what I would want. If I see that not given, because of a clash of heads, then you go, okay, or if it's given like it was, you think, okay, sweet. But then you'll see another week, there'll be someone else on the floor with a clash of heads. Oh no, stop straight away. Or VAR will rule it out. And you think, but why was that not the same for us? Or, for example, the big one for me was the Man City last weekend when we played them, and Ryan Fraser's gone in, and Edison's come flying out and just swiped him. So,
do you think there's like a big club bias, because it seems like the top six always get these funny decisions.
I don't want to call it bias, but like it's just, for some reason, whatever it is, it's just the way it is. I mean, it's like, it's almost going back to the Fergie times. Remember when these people used to say, "Oh, you get Fergie time"? Like, they're losing, they get like 6 minutes, and you're like, "Where's that come from?" You know, it's almost like. But the thing is VAR was brought in to obviously give the referees a hand. Now, I think that lately, especially the last few weeks, then it's not being used for that, because I think sometimes is that they're nervous to overturn decisions or to show the referees. Like, it's got better from when it first came in, but I just think now, I mean, there's not one person who would look at that Ryan Fraser tackle, or Edison on Ryan Fraser, and say that's not a penalty. Even you look at Cancelo, who was who had the ball, he even half stopped and turned around and was looking and was thinking, like, waiting for the referee to blow his whistle. And I was thinking, that's obvious. And then even when we played on, I was expecting VAR to come back and look at it properly. But it seems like it's just looked at, now, right, play on, checked. But then if it's someone else, it's checked for like 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's a shambles.
It's not great.
How can it be 1 minute is checked and it's like literally 20 seconds is checked, done. Right, we've seen it enough times, sweet. And then other weeks you'll play a game and you'll be standing there as a player for like 2-3 minutes while it says VAR is checking goal. And you're thinking, but then last week it was done in 20 seconds. So what's the difference? So there's no consistency with with what's being offered, And that's the thing that frustrates me, is that I don't mind whatever way it is. I'd just rather it be consistently that way. If you're not going to stop the game for a head injury in that situation for the Liverpool game, or whatever, 2 players down the box, whatever it is, then that's sweet, cool. But then next week, don't stop it for a head injury for a game when it's the same as the week before. Yeah. So it's like they're picking and choosing when when they want to stop it, when they don't, and that's where it annoys me. But that's for someone else to
iron out, right? And 100%. Isaac, just going back a little bit, because obviously a little while back we were talking about the atmosphere, and the crowd, and how sometimes the toxic atmosphere can have an impact on players. I also wonder, because I think Dot touched on it when he spoke about the takeover, and I really just wanted to get your thoughts on how that drawn out process impacted the dressing room, yourself as an individual. Are those things that will impact you on the pitch? And is it a situation where, like fans, you're probably just like, we just want to get it over and done with so we can move on? Or is it something that you just sort of block out and you just focus completely on the task at hand, which is sorting out matters on the pitch?
I think, to be honest with you, I think for the lads that have just obviously arrived, obviously in the last 2 or 3 years, maybe you could say that. But I think there's a few of us, or there's a lot of us in the dressing room that have been there a long time now. This is my 6th season. It's the same for 4, 5, 6 of the other lads. We obviously, when we first got promoted back to the Premier League, I think Amanda at the time was looking at getting the consortium to buy the club then, and that was in 2017. So that was 4 years ago. So it was almost becoming like, not a laughing joke at the time, but it was like, oh, the takeover is going to happen now. But it wasn't. It was like every 6 months. It usually come around about December, and then
Christmas time,
before the transfer window, and then before the summer transfer window, every year, little surfaces, stories would resurface about takeover, and it got to a point where, after the first year, when obviously there was a takeover possibility, you thought, oh, like this could happen. And then it didn't happen. And then the following year, it's resurfaced and you think, oh, it could happen. Then it doesn't happen. And when you get to the third year, you're like, nah, it's you think, oh, like it's just like paper talk or whatever. So you don't really believe it. But then obviously this year, it was just like, yeah, it was a bit of talk at the start of the summer, and then literally then bang, just happened, and it was like so quick. None of the players really, didn't have any inside information or knew anything. It literally just got reported on Sky Sports, and that was it. And a few of the lads we got told before it got announced on Sky Sports, but it was like, wasn't like days before. It was like like an hour before, or a couple of hours before. So it was still new to the players. So it was amazing for it to happen, straight away, rather than it being drawn out process again. But for the lads, it was just, or for me personally, it was just happiness for the fans, because with all due respect to all the players that are there now, like these supporters have been supporting the club for, some of them have been supporting for 40 years, 50 years, or you get, even 10 years, whatever it is, they've been supporting the club, and they will support the club for the rest of their lives, Us as players, we're only contracted there for a certain amount of time, even in a career. Let's think about it as a career. Let's say that you're there for 10 years of your career or 15 years of your career. When you finish your career, the likelihood of you being associated with the club in terms of supporting them or whatever, or whatever it is slim. So whereas these supporters have been there from the start, and they're going to be there when you're long gone. So for them to have that joy and happiness, and to have that potential progression and potential to reach a high level, that's all that you want. Because us as players, obviously we're doing a job to be contracted there or whatever it is, and we enjoy it. But when we're gone, we're gone.
Yeah.
They're still going to be there. So for them, it's the best thing in the world, and that's the most important thing.
Isaac, sorry, but I have to ask, how is it for the players though? Because with change comes a lot of uncertainty. And I know in the next transfer window, the January transfer window that's around the corner, and in the summer, there's going to be a lot of changes at the club. How do the players feel about their futures? How do you feel?
The thing is this is what everyone says. It's quite funny, actually.
Yeah, everyone's talking about it, really.
honestly, it does make me laugh, because obviously you're going to get some people that are going to be spouting all these names, like world-class names. That's, to be fair, Newcastle fans, the real Newcastle fans that actually go to the games and actually support and actually live in the city, they don't expect Mbappe, or that's just paper talk, and all these people from outside the region that will talk about this. All they want to do is have some improvement around the stadium. It got cleaned up. The sports director obviously got taken down the signs, which was important for the fans. The training ground's getting a few bits done to it. Obviously, they want to improve the squad, like the players want to improve the squad, because you get better players, you train with better players, you play with better players, you're going to improve. So as a player, you always want that. But the thing is that they go, they'll be like, oh, so-and-so, this player or this player's going to leave in January, and, he'll get released, and then, well, we can buy this player. And I'm thinking, listen, guys, it's not Football Manager. Like, it's not like you can go online and you can, look at the squad list, and you look through and you go, oh, he's not playing, he's not playing, he's not playing. He'll get transferred there, he'll leave to go there, and then we'll buy in this player. It doesn't work like that, because at the end of the day...
Isaac, let's be honest, sometimes when there's a lot of money involved in a football club, it does work like that. Sometimes we see transfer windows where, for example, Chelsea's first big window, multiple incomings.
QPR, when they came into money.
Yeah, QPR. But the thing is that it's not sustainable. Chelsea is sustainable because they've got the success. And that Chelsea, when they started to buy, were already in the top 6.
Yeah.
So they were already a club that was challenging to get there. They only needed a little bit of a push to get there. We are way, way, way down in terms of compared to where Chelsea have started, or even Man City. When Man City got taken over, they were top 10 still, like a guaranteed top 10, top 8 side. So they just needed a bit more of a push to get there. Obviously, ours is going to be a much longer process to get anywhere near the top 6, because when you look at the other clubs that have tried, Everton, £500 million spent. Leicester, it's taken them years to be able to be sustainably there. Their recruitment's been excellent. And, they're there. Tottenham, you look at the top 6 now, it's not really a top 6, it's a top 8. Because you've got, Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal, Tottenham, Leicester, West Ham are doing.
West Ham are doing amazing.
We must say Newcastle have ambitions very, very to join that though, Isaac.
Yeah, so that's 8 clubs. That's a top 8.
Yeah.
At the minute, and then you've got Everton obviously trying to break into that. Who spent a lot of money, got a lot of good players. So there's already 9 clubs. That's half. That's top 10.
Yeah.
So how are we going to get from here to breaking into that like that? It's impossible.
Yeah, it's going to take
impossible.
time.
Because it doesn't matter. You can chuck £500 million at it. There's no guarantee that that's going to be the case, because Everton have found that out. There's no guarantee about that. It's got to be, the recruitment's got to be right. Players have got to be right. Then it's got to gel with obviously what the manager wants, what the club's ethos is. There's all these different things. But for example, they go, oh, this player, it's impossible because some players have got contracts. If you've got a contract and you've got 3 years left, what are they going to do? They can't just say, well, it's not like a football manager. They go, oh, that player's gone, he's released. You can't do that. Because, for example, they might have kids here, for example. They might have, they've got a wife, 2 kids. The kids are at school. They're loving it. They've got 3 years left. Suddenly the club doesn't want them. It's not a case where they can just turn around and go, oh, we don't want you anymore, bye. Well, hang on a minute. You've got 3 years left or 2 years left, whatever it may be. You sit and go, oh, you've got 2 years left. So at the end of the day, people, obviously fans that don't see it like that, they don't see it from the personal point of view. They just see it from a football point of view or a business point of view. Oh, well, that player's not playing, for example, so he'll go in January. But what about his personal side? His kids might be in school, his missus might be settled, they've just bought a house, whatever it is. It's not going to be a case of that easy to go, well, the club doesn't want you anymore, see you later. The club's going to have to either pay them to go a little bit, or they're going to, so there's all these different things that people don't see or don't think about when they're going, oh, well, we've got to have this. And then the manager's not going to want to have players in his squad that he can't use, because obviously there's only 25-man squad. So you can imagine, if they want to go out and buy 5 or 6 players, then there's going to have to be 5 or 6 players from the 25-man squad that are going to have to go. And if some of them don't want to go, what are you going to do? You're going to be paying players to be in the 23s or to be in the... It's impossible. Then you get a massive explosion of players in a club, and the club's paying players millions of pounds a year to not do anything. So it's very, very tricky. Obviously, that's why they're owners, and that's why they're directors of football, etc., or they're board level people, because they have to make these decisions and do it well. But it's not as easy as people think it is. They go, oh, we're going to sign 6 players in January. And it's like the names get touted. It makes me laugh because they go, oh, these names that are touted.
Haaland, Mbappe.
Yeah, but it's not. But not even players like that. But like, you think players, for example, like they go, oh, that player will sign. But he might not want to sign. Do you know what I mean? So it's like they get linked here, and it's like, oh, well, yeah, he'll sign. Yeah, but he might have AC Milan or someone else involved, and then you sit there and think, well, which one do you want to choose? And you can chuck as much money at it as you want. This is what I mean. This is what I said. Some players are mercenaries. I understand that. I completely understand. You're going to get players that, some players just want a bit of money. I understand that, because that happens. I'm not naive to that. For me personally, it's not about the money, because these levels of players in the Premier League, or players that are in Europe at a high level, is wherever you're going to go, you're going to get paid well. Yeah. It's not like you're going to be, with all due respect to some of these European players, you're going to get offered 30 grand a week more. That, to them, they're already on stupid money. Yeah. So they want to win things, or they want to be involved in a something that's going to be project. Yeah, that's what I mean. So that's what's important, to go for those types of players, rather than players that you're going to give them an extra bit of money, but do they care that they're going to you want to win, or so there's all these different things, but that's for the club to sort out. But it's difficult. It's not as easy as people think.
Yeah, it's not so black and white, is it?
No, people think it is, because obviously they play Football Manager or FIFA, where FIFA goes on to say, oh, someone's not happy, or whatever it says on the FIFA thing, someone's not happy, and you put them on the transfer list and they go. It's not that easy. So it'll be interesting. But from my perspective, it's just purely about myself. I can't affect what the club's going to do. If the club don't want me, or they want to sell me, the club, that's their decision. All that I can do, I always believe in a saying, control the controllables. So that's my motto that I always live by. So if I can control what I can control and do it well, then that's all that I can do. So that
exactly.
means, you know, training well, eating well, performing when I get the chance to play, doing my best, making sure that I give myself the best chance to perform at a high level. And if after all those things, I'm not wanted or they want to sell me,
Nothing you can do about it.
I hold my hands up and go, sweet, no problem, because I've controlled what I can control, you know? And that's all that you can do.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So,
100%. Do you know what, Isaac? What I wanted to ask you about is like things on the training pitch, right? So as you already mentioned, you know, you guys have been on the wrong side of a few results, some that, you know, could have gone your way, but the table is a table and you are where you are, right? I'm interested to understand what like the vibe and what the I guess the atmosphere is like on the training ground when you're in a position like this, right? Is it you know, is it important that everyone is still jovial and upbeat and people are still like joking and trying to keep that camaraderie, or is it sort of all business focused, straight faces? We've got work to do. Do you get what I mean?
The dog
Yeah,
fight.
yeah, no, I get what you mean. No, but it's impossible because, like, for example, Rafa Benitez, for me was was unbelievable for me personally, but was great for a lot of the lads and for the club. Is that he was a master at that. Is that if he was never too high and he was never too low. We could have won three. I remember there's time we won 3 or 4 in a row. You know, everyone was getting, you know, overly happy and people were like, oh my God, like we're going to, you know, amazing. He was always the same. Like he was never like, he would never be too happy, but never be too sad if we were losing. So like, for example, with him, we lost, well, not lost, we didn't win for 10 games, I think, or 11 games. And then we slowly started to win in that season and started to finish off quite well. But like, he was always the master of not being too high, not being too low. And it's the same with Eddie. He's very good with that as well, is that he's a firm believer in having that spirit, because if you don't have the spirit and you're too serious all the time, you end up burning out, because when things don't go your way, you get too serious, it's impossible for the mind. And the mind is a massive thing in football, is that, you know, confidence, form, whatever you want to call it, your mind plays a massive, massive part in high performance. And if you're serious and you're too down, or you know, too, obviously you've got to be focused at training. Obviously Eddie is a massive advocate of training hard and making sure that there's purpose to training. That's another thing that he's very, very good at, is the training has a purpose. Everything's got a purpose, you know, every drill, every exercise has got a purpose, and it has to be done with intensity and purpose and intent. And obviously then when you bring that from training into match day, that intent and that purpose, obviously it gives you a better chance of performing well and getting a result. But even if we don't get a result, it's about going back to the training pitch, training hard, being focused. But there's a very fine line between, you know, you can be focused but still have a laugh, you know? It doesn't have to be focused and then no one's laughing and everyone's got a serious face and it's all stiff, because then it puts more pressure on you. You know, you start to get a bit more anxiety, those types of things. Whereas if it's just normal, you know, relaxed, when it's time to work, it's time to work, and we know it's time to work. And then outside of that, it's normal.
What would you say is your preferred position? Because when I see you, I watch you and I see a swashbuckling midfielder, box to box, strong tackler, you know.
It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one because I'm a centre midfielder all day long, you know. But obviously it's been tricky because the last, I'd say, 18 months, I've not really had I don't know how to say it. We've not really had a settled formation with a settled squad in terms of, you know, everyone being available and everyone being fully fit. Because obviously last year we had COVID, there was injuries, there was myself included, there was loads of different things that impacted it. So from a manager's perspective, obviously I could play numerous positions. So for example, last year we played a lot of different formations, like 3 or 4 different formations. So when you have that, it's difficult to get a rhythm in your position because you're not playing you can't build relationships with different players. You can't, build movements and patterns, because one week it could be this formation, the next week it could be a different one. So you're asked to do different jobs around a position, So, like, for example, we've played 3-5-2 formation last year with Steve. And, sometimes I might be playing, or it'd be 5-3-2, for example. Sometimes I'll be playing on the right-hand side of a midfield three. So the demands of that are totally different to if I'm the middle one of the three. Or if we play, 4-4-2, it's the centre midfielders, all the jobs, although you play in midfield, the minute details are all different. So you're never really getting an exact, position, you're always having to think about 3 or 4 positions in your head. I mean, for example, West Ham this season, the first game of the season was a funny one. So I played 90 minutes and I played 3 different positions in the 90 minutes. So crazy. You're sitting there thinking, as a player, I'm trying to play a position. Like, I want to be the best in my position. But in the back of my mind, I've got to think about if there's an injury to someone else, or it's not working, or you've got to then change to here. And then, what's my requirements to do that? But this is all happening while you're playing a Premier League game. Do you understand?
Do players make this clear to the manager? Do they speak to the manager about this? Like, for example, you say you're a centre mid, but you're getting played at right back. Do you make your feelings clear to the manager, or do you just?
For me, I've been used to it, because that's what kind of is, without being, I don't know how to say it, but it's kind of one of my strengths. So I don't want to shut off one of my strengths,
Yeah.
So one of my strengths is being versatile. So if that means that I get to play, I want to play every game. Listen, I don't care where I play. If it's right back, whatever it is, I don't care. I want to play, So if the manager thinks for a certain game that that's what he believes is best for the team, I'm not going to argue. I'll play wherever he wants to play. But it did get to the point where certainly the start of the season, it became tricky, because as versatile as I am, it's difficult to play 3 positions in one game.
For anybody, of course.
Centre mid for 60 minutes, then play right of a midfield three for 60 minutes, then middle of a midfield three for 15 minutes, then right centre back for 15 minutes. It's like, it's like you got in your head, you're sitting there thinking, whoa, like all these different things that you're required to do. And it's, with all due respect, it's not like an FA Cup game where you're playing against, a lower league opposition, for example. It doesn't matter, because the players are not the same quality. When you're playing West Ham and you're playing Premier League players, you've got top quality opposition. They're not bad. They're not bad players. They're very, very good players. So it makes it even more difficult. But for me, I'm a centre midfielder. But if the manager asks me to do a different job, then I'll always do it. But I think to sum it up, for the last 18 months, I'd say that it's been a bit tricky for me to really be the best that I can be at my position, because the formations we've had, not necessarily in the last, since Eddie's arrived, but obviously before that, we'd had 3 or 4 or 5 different formations. So when it's like that, in my head, I'm thinking I have to be aware of this, be aware of that. So then it takes it away from the focus of one main position. So for me, that's pretty much summing it up.
Fair enough. You know what? It's interesting that you speak about the mind and obviously the example that you gave in terms of just how you have to be so alert and aware in terms of playing 3 positions in one game. Like, that's unheard of. Do you know what I mean? I've never heard of that before. So fair play and credit to you for that. But on the mind, because I remember a quote from Sir Arsene Wenger, who said that some of your strongest characteristics were your intelligence, your concentration, how intelligent you are on the pitch and that. And I really wanted to understand where that came from. Like where, how do you feel, maybe it could be from sort of early days in your development, in your career, perhaps off the pitch. You're a well-spoken person. I imagine you do a lot of reading or whatever. Like, do you think those things contribute to?
I'm a uni student now as well, by the way.
Come on.
Yeah. Makes sense. So yeah, like, where do you think that stems from? Like, those being such strong attributes that you have, do you think, you know, maybe life experiences have helped you mold those aspects of your persona?
I think from a football perspective, it's probably my dad, to be honest, because I'll tell you a funny story. So when I was younger, I was desperate to join a Sunday league team. So I was, what was I, 8 maybe 8 or 9. I was desperate to join a Sunday league. All my mates were playing. I was like, Dad, I want to join. He's like, yeah, son, I don't really think like you're ready, you know, to play with your mates. Like, you know, let's just do some training. So we used to do he used to take me over the park, do 1-to-1 training with me, you know, every weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And then like, if it was the summertime, he used to take me one day in the week over the field. He used to be over there for 2 hours at a time, doing different drills, various different things. And then after a year of doing that, he then said to me, right, go and, you know, join a Sunday league team. So I joined my local Sunday league team, played 1 game. Remember the manager came on to me and he said, you're going to be coming on and you're going to play left wing. And I was like, I didn't, but at this point I was 9. I didn't understand positioning, honestly. So I had no idea. So the guy's telling me, the manager's coming on left wing. My dad's like, right, you're playing left wing. I was like, sweet. I've come on, there's a throw in on the right-hand side. Yeah. I've sprinted across the pitch to get the throw in. I've got the throw in. I've turned, dribbled. I think I shot, missed, or nearly, the goalkeeper saved it and it went for a corner. And my dad's like, what are you doing? I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm just playing. Like, I want to play. He's like, no, you're left wing. So you stay on the left-hand, you know, the left-hand side. I was like, what? And I didn't understand because I didn't have a clue. Do you know what I mean? So I was so oblivious. I just wanted to kick a ball around and play and score. So after that game, he sat me down and said, listen, we need to understand positions of the pitch. So he got a massive, he's still got it at home. So he got one of those big, you know, like the tactics boards. So we used to put the dots there and we used to go through it every week, like honestly, every week for every position, not just my own, but every position. He used to be like, this is where right back goes. This is the channel. This is where you should be if the ball's on this side, if the ball's on that side. So we used to do positioning when I was 9 or 10.
Wow.
So
it's been drummed into your head from then.
Yeah. So in my head at 9 or 10, this is it. So then when I got to the game, obviously then I understood, you know, I was thinking, right, this is what a striker does. This is what a centre mid does. So I knew. So whatever position I was asked to play, in my head, I was remembering what I was doing, you know, tactics wise with my dad when I was at home. So then after that, that's obviously when I got scouted for Southend, went there. But it's from that really that it's ingrained because I did it when I was 9. So most kids don't really have that, you know.
The tactical side of things,
So he was doing the tactical side when I was 9 and 10. So when I got to 16 and we started to obviously do a lot more of it, I was like, yeah, I already know that.
Yeah. See, everyone's talking about Project Mbappe. It should be Project Hayden then.
The thing is ability-wise, I've always said about myself is when I speak to young kids anyway, is ability-wise, I've played with I'll be honest with you, like my ability in terms of like natural ability is decent. It's okay. But it's not, I've played with far better players than me, far better. And when I mean far better, like miles better. Like I sit there now and I talk to my dad about players that I've played with, you know, under 14s, 15s, 16s. They were miles better than me, like miles. I'm being deadly honest, miles better than me. But what sets people apart and what actually gets people to this level is the dedication, the hard work and the mentality to be able to keep going when there's setbacks or whatever it is. And it's honestly, I'm telling you, there's players that should have made it. That if they had my like mentality and hard work and belief, they would be much better players than me. But it's just that sometimes they don't have that, you know.
Yeah.
So for me, I always sit there and think my career is based off of a mentality and hard work and desire, more so than ability. Because my ability, of course, is good. You've got to be half decent to play in the Premier League, but I wouldn't say that I'm a great player or I'm technically amazing or there's something in my game that's really amazing. I just say that it's built upon a desire and a mentality and a team ethic and a team work rate that gets me to this point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I would say that's why the Newcastle fans love you. You put everything on that football pitch, and you know that Isaac Hayden is always going to give 100%. If there's a 50-50, you're going in. You're going in. You're leaving. And I think that leads me to. That's my dinner. I think that leads me to my final question before we just go on to a little bit off the pitch. What is your message to the Newcastle fans?
I think just said they've been wonderfully good all season, to be honest. I think it's difficult to ask for anything else from them, to be quite honest with you. I mean, we played City the other day, we were 4-0 down and they were still singing their hearts out in the 94th minute. So I think it's just stick with us. I think the majority, you're always going to get the minority that maybe are very annoyed or not happy. That happens at every football club. You're never going to be able to please everyone. But I think the majority of fans, the fans that go to games, the fans that have been season ticket holders or go to the matches regularly will understand that the lads are given everything. Especially since the new manager Eddie's come in, we've been working very hard and putting a lot more better performances together. Okay, we haven't got results in some games, but performances have been better than they have been. And they can see that we're building something and moving forwards rather than going backwards. So I think the main message is to stick with us, stick with the gaffer and the staff and trust that he knows what he's doing, because he does. And as said, we'll hopefully churn out some more victories in the new year and push forwards as a team.
Good message, man.
Yeah,
100%.
lovely.
Right, like Dot said, so we're going to talk about life away from away from the game and off the pitch. So when you're not training, when you're not studying, as you mentioned, you're a uni student now.
Yeah.
What does Isaac Hayden do in his spare time?
Tricky one. What do I do? Well, walk the dog. The dog's fast asleep next to me, so. Walk the dog usually. I've got a 4-year-old daughter, so
that's another full-time job.
Family
That's
man.
Another full-time job.
Yeah, it's daddy time. That's pretty much it, really. Obviously.
Yeah, I can relate now. Yeah.
It's not really much else. It's just normal life,
Yeah.
Like, but it said it's more like, because when you don't get to spend. It said with football, you're away a lot of the time at weekends and stuff. So that's obviously when my daughter's off school. So I just try to spend as much time with her as possible, really, and do things as a family all together, and obviously have that family time. So I think it's important, and that's about it. I'm not really big into anything else. I mean, I'm not a drinker really, so I'm not like big into going out. I'm not massively into nightclubs, things like that. I'm a big golf fan when it's warm, not at the moment because it's freezing. A few of the lads play golf. Quite a few of us play, especially when it's summertime. We get a good few rounds in, and that's always good fun because it's a bit of healthy competition.
Yeah.
So we'll try and be the best player in the squad. So it's always good fun. John Joe's definitely leading that one though at the minute.
Okay.
We had him on.
Very, very good. Yeah. Very, very good. Very, very good golfer. That's I'm a big cyclist as well.
Okay.
So go on the bike, especially in the summertime. It's really, really nice. With friends from around the area. Go out on the bike, get on the Strava. And see what records I can beat on there.
Yeah, classic.
And that's about it.
Are you into fashion much, or you just
go
into
not
work?
Really. I must admit, I'm not a big fashion. I'm not. Do you know what it is? I think everyone's different, aren't they? Loads of people have different sort of things that they're into. But for me, I think being in Newcastle, it's a bit different to living in London,
Right.
Like there's really no one cares about Louis Vuitton or Gucci or
what about Allan Saint-Maximin? What's he? I'm sure he's turning up.
Yeah, he's got style. To be fair, the kid's got he's got style.
What a player! What a player!
What a player!
What a player!
Yeah, he's a great character to have around. He really is. He's a good kid. To be fair, like he's a little bit misunderstood by some, but he's a good kid, and he talent-wise. Natural ability, I would probably say between him and Santi Cazorla are the best two players that I've trained and played with for natural ability, like in terms of just raw ability. Those two. Santi had no physical attributes whatsoever in terms of size, speed, pace, stamina. Couldn't really run, but technically was outrageous, absolutely outrageous. Like his feet were so quick, his left and right foot was basically the same. His vision, his weight of part, everything was technically was probably the best player I've played with technically. But his technique was ridiculous. But then in terms of raw ability, Allan is. You've never seen it. Honestly, I'm telling you, you've never seen anything like it before. There's not one player in the Premier League. I'm being dead serious. There's not one player in the Premier League who's got the raw ability that he has. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. I'm telling you. Obviously, you got all the other players. I'm not saying that he's the best player in the Premier League.
When he gets going, you can't touch him.
Raw ability, like genuinely raw genetical ability is frightening. Because I mean, when he dribbles a bit and he beats 3 or 4 players, you're thinking like.
What?
How's he done that? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like but it's like he doesn't know either. Do you know what I mean? It's quite hard to describe. It's like he's dribbling, but it's like FIFA. Like
he's just playing. He's just playing.
It's like someone's controlling with an analog stick and like we're just mannequins. And I'm sitting thinking he's dribbling past me. I'm thinking what? I'm thinking. The only way you can really tackle him is if you foul him sometimes.
Bring him down.
Have you done that in training? You've done that to him.
I've just pulled him down. Like I've just literally rugby tackled him. Just gone right. You're not going anywhere. Just chucked him on the floor. But even then, he's strong. You know.
He looks quite built, man.
Very, very strong. He honestly. He rides tackles very well, but you have to when you got that dribbling ability. But like honestly, sometimes to foul him, you just literally have to pull him down. You think right, not today. They just go bang. But no, he's a special talent, and I really do believe that given time, I think Eddie will get the best out of him, because I do honestly believe that he's got some special talent to be able to reach the top level. It's just getting it out there on a more consistent basis.
100%. Isaac, final one from me. 2-part question. The first part is, what are you watching at the moment on Netflix? If you're watching anything, what series are you into? And part B is, what is your most played song on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever streaming platform you use?
Tricky one. So watching, believe it or not, I've not watched anything new just yet, but I'm re-watching Queen of the South.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So honestly, it's unbelievable.
Good shout. Yeah.
So good. But I've already watched it once, but I'm re-watching it again. It was so good.
Picking up all the extra nuggets you might have missed first time.
Yeah, it's always like that.
And then Spotify, I can tell you actually my most played song.
Oh yeah, because Spotify Wrapped came out just not too long ago, innit?
2021
my most played
playlist
song of 2021 is Double Up by Nipsey Hussle.
Oh my gosh, that's a tune. That is a tune.
Legend.
Yeah. I love that tune when I'm driving. Chill, just laid back, just Isaac, I like the way you think, mate. I like the way you think.
That song is that's the top one for me.
That's a good tune.
So those two.
No, I just want to say it's been a pleasure, Isaac. Thank you for taking out the time, and we wish you all the best for the rest of the season, and hopefully you guys can pull it off and stay in the Premier League.
Yeah, 100%. Nothing else to add, man. Isaac, it's been an absolute pleasure again. Thank you so much for taking out the time, man. We really appreciate it. Honestly, it's been such a chilled, kickback of a chat. You know what I mean? It's just been really, really good, man. And I think also the message to the Newcastle faithful will definitely resonate and go down really, really well. You know, as Dot mentioned, we wish you all the best for the season ahead, or the rest of the season, of course. Hopefully, everyone rallies together. Eddie Howe gets a tune out of everyone, and you guys finish the season really strong.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Best, man. All right. So thank you very much, listeners, for tuning in up until this point in time. If you're not yet following us on Twitter, it's at podcast_TBG. On Instagram at pod_TBG. Subscribe to our YouTube, like the video. You can see all of our interviews on there as well with, different players and people within the game of football. And keep tuned. We've got bigger and better things coming. Thank you very much for all of your listenership throughout the year, and all your support throughout the year. 2022 is coming fast, and we've got some big things coming, man. So stay locked, stay tuned with us. We're going to leave it there. Anything else to add?
Happy New Year, because this is coming out in the new year.
So. Happy New Year, guys. Have a great one. And from the TBG team, over and out.
Peace.